Have you ever paused to wonder how many small, invisible habits might quietly shape the way the world sees you as you grow older? It's fascinating. Our day-to-day actions and routines become woven into who we are so subtly that we rarely notice when something shifts. Maybe you've always been meticulous about your hair or your posture, and then one day you wake up, look in the mirror, and realize that you've started letting little things go. In many cases, close friends or family members might sense these changes before you do, yet they hesitate to say anything for fear of hurting your feelings. This might be why so many seemingly tiny habits remain unspoken, even though they play a big role in how you're perceived. Aging is not a negative process. It's simply a natural progression of life. But our society often doesn't talk openly about certain age-related behaviors or attitudes. We tend to admire wisdom and experience, yet we sometimes ignore the everyday signals that convey whether someone is genuinely engaged, self-aware, or confident. As a result, older adults can slide into patterns of speech, dress, and personal care that unintentionally send the message that they're disconnected or less capable. Worst of all, these routines can become so ingrained that nobody politely mentions them. Instead, people might quietly distance themselves, or they might give superficial compliments to avoid awkward conversations. The core message here is simple. Knowledge is power. The more aware you become of these unnoticed habits, the better positioned you are to make small but significant improvements. When you recognize that your posture has slipped, you can stand up taller. When you see that you're speaking louder than necessary, you can adopt a calmer tone. And when you realize how easy it is to make subtle grooming adjustments, tweaking the clothes you wear or the products you use, you can reclaim an aura of vitality that transcends age. Growing older doesn't mean fading into the background. It means refining how you present yourself so that your maturity and wisdom shine brighter than ever. In the next sections, you'll uncover a range of often overlooked behaviors that can silently shape how others perceive you. Whether it's how you carry yourself, the words you choose, or the habits you build into your daily routine, each subtle change can either draw people closer or push them away. If you've ever sensed that people were treating you differently but couldn't quite put your finger on why, stay with me. By the end of this discussion, you'll have a fresh perspective on aging and a set of easy-to-apply tips that keep you feeling confident, socially connected, and full of life. Let's begin this journey by diving into one of the simplest yet most impactful factors, the signals we send without even opening our mouths. It might surprise you how much can be conveyed before you say a single word. Body language, posture, gait, facial expressions speaks volumes about your emotional state and self-image. As people age, it's natural for the spine to compress and the joints to stiffen. You might find it more comfortable to lean forward slightly or take shorter, more cautious steps to avoid tripping. However, these small shifts can build up over time until you're stooping noticeably or shuffling your feet. Most onlookers won't comment, but they'll often assume you're weaker or less capable than you really are. Consider a woman named Judith, once known for her regal bearing and lively stroll. In her youth, she carried herself with such poise that people would often notice her the moment she entered a room. Yet by her mid-70s, she'd adopted the habit of walking with her head tilted downward and her shoulders rounded forward. She had grown more cautious about her footing, worried about stumbling. She thought nothing of it. After all, safety first, right? But one day, at a family gathering, she observed that everyone seemed to be speaking to her as though she were far more fragile than she felt. Grandchildren were yelling to be heard, even though her hearing was fine, and adult children were stepping in to handle tasks she was still perfectly capable of completing. That's when she realized her own body language was sending out signals that said, "I'm frail." What made the difference wasn't a dramatic transformation, but a deliberate effort to stand straighter. Judith started practicing simple exercises each morning, imagining a string pulling her upright from the crown of her head. She'd walk at a relaxed but assured pace, stepping confidently without dragging her feet. Within weeks, she noticed a change in how people interacted with her. Instead of seeing caution in their eyes, she saw warmth and respect. It was as if they sensed she was still the vibrant, self-assured woman they remembered from years ago. This isn't about faking vitality or pretending you don't have physical limitations. It's about preserving the confident essence that's always been within you. Good posture and a purposeful stride are subtle, yet they profoundly influence how others perceive your energy. When someone sees you standing tall, they're more likely to approach, engage in conversation, and assume you have meaningful contributions to offer. Compare that to someone who's habitually hunched over, a posture often taken to mean disengagement or lack of confidence, even when it's not intentional. If you've never thought about posture exercises, there are numerous simple ones you can do at home. Slow stretches, mindful breathing, and gentle yoga can help maintain flexibility. When you're walking, keep your chin up and your gaze forward. You don't need to hurry, but be mindful not to shuffle unless it's medically necessary. Staying balanced and stable is crucial, but that doesn't have to conflict with projecting a confident stance. Above all, remember that your body language can reinforce how you feel. You might find that standing up straight not only changes how people see you, but also changes how you see yourself. Aging gracefully isn't about denying the reality of physical changes. It's about making conscious choices that help you retain your sense of self. Body language is a clear form of nonverbal communication, and it's the first thing people notice. So if you sense that people are giving you unnecessary assistance or treating you in a patronizing way, reflect on whether your posture or movements might be sending signals you never intended. By refining how you carry yourself, you give others permission to treat you with the respect and warmth you genuinely deserve. Next, let's examine something that's often overlooked because it's so closely woven into our daily routines: personal grooming and minor hygiene details. When people think of grooming, they often imagine elaborate beauty routines or expensive products. Yet grooming, at its core, boils down to basic self-care. Trimmed nails, tidy hair, clean clothes, and a presentable appearance. These small acts project an image of self-respect and attention to detail, qualities that speak volumes no matter your age. Picture Oliver, who was known in his younger days as the most dashing man at any gathering. Even in middle age, he would appear at family functions impeccably dressed with crisp shirts and polished shoes. But as years passed, he began to let these details slide. It started when he went through a period of mild depression following retirement. He found less reason to get dressed up each morning, so he'd lounge in the same slightly rumpled clothes for days. He stopped caring about haircuts, thinking, who do I need to impress now that I'm retired? Before he knew it, he'd grown used to an unshaven look, worn-out slippers, and half-buttoned shirts. No one told him outright that he was looking unkempt, partly because they didn't want to hurt his feelings. But they noticed. Eventually, Oliver caught a glimpse of himself in a store window reflection. He didn't recognize the person staring back at him. Realizing he no longer felt pride in his appearance, he decided to make a change. He scheduled a haircut, trimmed his beard, put on a well-fitted shirt, and swapped out his ragged slippers for a neat pair of loafers. Almost instantly, he felt a renewed sense of self. Friends and neighbors started to greet him differently. A store clerk complimented his outfit. What changed wasn't his personality, but the subtle signals he was sending about who he was and how he wanted the world to see him. When you neglect grooming, you risk projecting an image of apathy, even if it's not how you truly feel. Others might interpret this lack of attention as a sign that you're struggling, ill, or uninterested in social interaction. If you've ever felt that people are hesitant or distant around you, consider taking a moment to assess your personal grooming. Simple changes, like regularly trimming nails, combing or styling your hair, and choosing clean, unwrinkled clothes, can transform the aura you project. You don't need to follow fashion trends or spend lavishly on salon services. Even the basics of hygiene and attire go a long way toward preserving a sense of dignity and self-assurance. Of course, everyone has days when they want to relax in casual clothing. That's perfectly fine. But if that casual comfort slides into habitual neglect, it can affect your mood and the way others engage with you. You might find that stepping into a fresh outfit brightens your entire outlook, reminding you that age is just a number, not a definition. By giving attention to these small details, you reconnect with the best parts of yourself, the parts that like to make a good impression and take pride in personal standards. In doing so, you signal that you're still in the game, engaged, and ready for whatever life brings your way. If you've ever spent time in a lively household or attended a holiday gathering, you know how easy it is for conversations to overlap. People interrupt each other, raise their voices, and jockey for attention. Yet there's a delicate balance between enthusiastic banter and dominating the discussion. One of the subtle changes that can occur with age, often linked to gradual hearing loss, is speaking more loudly than you realize or accidentally interrupting others before they finish their thoughts. Imagine Leonard, a vibrant retiree who loves hosting Sunday dinners for his extended family. He grew up in a time and place where lively debates around the dinner table were the norm. As he got older, his hearing started to decline, but he didn't immediately notice. He only realized something was off when he caught his son wincing during a story he was telling. Leonard's volume was so loud that it bordered on shouting. After dinner, his daughter quietly said, "Dad, you keep interrupting conversations. No one can finish a sentence without you jumping in." Leonard was shocked. He had no idea that his zeal for conversation was drowning everyone else out. Hearing issues are not the only culprit. Sometimes people develop the habit of cutting in simply because they're excited to share their experiences. This enthusiasm can be endearing in moderation, but it can come across as dismissive if it silences other voices. Meanwhile, those around you might be too polite to mention it. They'll simply smile, nod politely, and then avoid lengthy interactions. If you notice that people seem to drift away when you speak, or if you see them glancing at one another with strained expressions, it could be a sign that you're steering the conversation more than you realize. What's the solution? First, pay attention to how people react when you talk. If you observe them leaning away, wincing, or rarely speaking up, ask yourself if you might be speaking too loudly or interrupting. Consider getting a hearing test if you suspect any hearing loss. Many older adults find that once they start using hearing aids or assistive devices, their ability to regulate volume improves dramatically. At the same time, practice the art of listening. Give people space to express themselves fully. Pose open-ended questions. Make eye contact. Wait for a natural pause before adding your thoughts. If you find that you're still eager to jump in, take a slow, deep breath before you respond. Conversation is a two-way street, and the most fulfilling dialogues happen when everyone feels heard. By being intentional about your speaking habits, you'll not only make others more comfortable, but also deepen your own understanding of the people in your life. Imagine the richness of truly hearing what others say, rather than preparing your next statement or wondering if you're speaking loudly enough. The simple act of balancing speaking time with listening time can rekindle warm, engaging relationships that might otherwise cool under the pressure of one-sided conversations. In many cultures, older adults are revered for their wisdom and the lessons they can offer. However, it's easy to slide into a pattern of frequent complaining or criticizing, especially when you've accumulated a lifetime of experiences to compare against the present. Maybe you find today's technology baffling, or you're disappointed by the choices of younger generations. While it's healthy to discuss concerns, an overload of criticism can put a damper on any gathering. Consider Marian, a warm-hearted grandmother who found herself increasingly irritated by social media trends, modern slang, and the pace of life that she perceived as hectic during family get-togethers. She'd vocalize these frustrations without even realizing it. She'd roll her eyes at her grandchildren's phone usage, lament how nobody plays outside anymore, and remark how the world was far better when she was young. She believed she was simply telling the truth. But over time, her children and grandchildren visited less often, and they rarely engaged in deeper conversations. Eventually, Marian's daughter mustered the courage to say, "Mom, it's hard to talk to you when you always find something negative to point out. I don't want to be rude, but we want to enjoy our time together, not feel guilty or judged." That comment hit Marian hard. She realized that her negativity had turned into a constant cloud hanging over her interactions. Far from feeling respected for her experience, she was inadvertently pushing people away. The remedy for excessive negativity isn't forced optimism or pretending everything is perfect. Rather, it's about creating balance. If you have a complaint or criticism, pair it with a constructive idea or a genuine compliment about something else. habits. For instance, if you're annoyed by how glued people are to their phones, you could say, I miss how we used to talk face to face, but I'm happy we can still connect across distances quickly. Shifting your perspective helps you appreciate the positive aspects of modern life while still acknowledging the drawbacks. Negativity is often a habit formed over many years, but habits can be changed. One strategy is to track how many times in a day you voice a complaint. You might be surprised at how frequently these remarks pop out. The next step is to insert a conscious pause. Take a breath. Reflect on whether what you're about to say will bring others closer or push them away, then decide if you really need to say it. Over time, this simple practice can dramatically transform the emotional climate of your interactions, making people more eager to spend time with you. Remember that your wisdom is valuable, but the way you present it shapes whether people listen eagerly or tune out. By seasoning your conversation with a touch of empathy and openness, you inspire the people around you to do the same. You may find that this shift in tone not only changes how others respond, but also how you feel about your own life. After all, focusing on the good things like your strengths, your friendships, and the simple joys in everyday routines can lift your mood in ways you never expected. Human beings are creatures of habit. We find comfort in routines and traditions, especially those that evoke pleasant memories. There's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying the music, clothes, or hobbies of your younger years. Yet a persistent refusal to adapt or explore anything new can make you appear disconnected from the present moment. And that can sometimes lead others, especially younger folks, to see you as rigid or out of touch. Think about Robert, who had a penchant for technology back in his 40s, enthusiastically embracing the earliest personal computers. But as new devices emerged, he decided it was all too complicated. He stuck with an ancient flip phone long after smartphones took over the market. His children and grandchildren, accustomed to texting, photo sharing, and video calls, found it increasingly challenging to keep him in the loop. When Robert did join a family event, he'd often complain about how tech-obsessed everyone else was. Meanwhile, they just wished he'd learn a little about the devices that had become essential to their daily lives, if only so they could share photos and moments with him more easily. Sticking to your comfort zone can also manifest in the clothes you wear, the shows you watch, or the topics you're willing to discuss. An older woman named Gloria found that her grandchildren were reluctant to share music with her because her initial response was always, "That's just noise." Over time, they stopped trying, and she wondered why she felt increasingly left out of their world. It wasn't until one of her granddaughters gently told her, "Grandma, I love you, but every time we introduce you to something new, you dismiss it. It feels like you're not interested in what we care about." Gloria, stunned, realized she'd been shutting down opportunities to connect purely out of habit. Being open to new experiences doesn't mean you have to abandon your preferences or your identity. It simply means meeting the present on its own terms, even if just a little bit. If you still love the music you grew up with, that's wonderful. But perhaps you can give your granddaughter's favorite band a listen to see if there's a single song that sparks your interest. If you think social media is overwhelming, maybe you can find a middle ground, such as signing up for a private account just to see photos of your friends and family. These small gestures signal that you value staying connected, even if you're not a fan of every modern trend. Life is full of exciting innovations. Younger generations aren't necessarily rejecting tradition. They're building upon it in new ways by adapting certain routines, whether it's the way you communicate, dress, or gather information. You demonstrate that your wisdom is fluid, not frozen in time. This openness also keeps your mind active and your spirit curious. People will gravitate towards your readiness to explore, even if you maintain your unique tastes. The key is balance. Hold on to what you cherish from the past while making room for the future. That attitude can spark wonderful conversations and mutual learning experiences that bridge the generation gap. One of the most uncomfortable topics, even among close family, is personal odor, whether it's bad breath or body odor. Many older adults have a reduced sense of smell, so they don't notice these changes themselves. Certain medications can contribute to dryness in the mouth, while dietary choices and dehydration can affect body chemistry. The end result is that you might walk around with stale breath or a musty odor and never realize it, because loved ones rarely feel comfortable pointing this out. You won't know why they seem to keep interactions conversations shorter or maintain a little extra physical distance. Take the example of Clara. She was an active older woman, always ready to volunteer in her community. She loved chatting with neighbors and meeting new people. But over time, she noticed that conversations became briefer. People would respond politely, but seemed eager to move on. Clara chalked it up to everyone being busy. Then one day, her sister finally said, "I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you might want to consider drinking more water and using a stronger mouthwash. Your breath has been a bit off lately." At first, Clara was offended, but she trusted her sister enough to investigate. She visited her dentist, who explained that her dry mouth, a side effect of some heart medication, was causing persistent bad breath. By staying well hydrated, using an alcohol-free mouth rinse, and chewing sugar-free gum, Clara quickly resolved the issue. Body odor can be just as tricky. Maybe you've used the same brand of deodorant for decades, but changes in body chemistry or hormone levels could render it less effective. Or perhaps you enjoy a beloved sweater and wear it multiple times without realizing that it has absorbed odors. If people appear to back away or avoid close contact, don't assume it's just them being distant. It could be your body sending signals you can't detect. The good news is that these issues are often very simple to fix. Keep yourself hydrated, especially if you're on medications that lead to dryness. Practice daily oral care that goes beyond just brushing your teeth. Flossing, tongue cleaning, and mouthwash can make a dramatic difference. For body odor, rotate your outfits, wash clothes thoroughly, and consider showering more frequently if you're physically active or live in a warm climate. Test new deodorants. If you find your old standby no longer does the trick, a small effort here can salvage countless social interactions, preserving your reputation as someone who is pleasant to be around. Don't let embarrassment prevent you from addressing this. If anything, realizing you can fix such a simple issue may lift a burden you didn't even know you were carrying. You'll regain the confidence to greet people warmly, stand closer when chatting, and share laughs without fear of offending anyone's senses. In many ways, personal scent is one of the most primal social cues. If others feel discomfort about it, they're likely to avoid deeper engagement. By staying on top of hygiene and odor, you open doors to more meaningful and enjoyable connections with those around you. As much as physical concerns and external habits matter, emotional intelligence plays an equally pivotal role in how others perceive you. Over the years, you've gathered a wealth of experiences, insights, and perspectives. But if you're not actively tuning into the emotional states of the people around you, you may miss opportunities to bond. Sometimes older adults, especially those who face losses or life changes, can become inwardly focused, unintentionally overlooking how others feel or what they might need. Reflect on Connie, who prided herself on being the family matriarch. She had strong opinions and freely dispensed advice, but she rarely asked her grandchildren about their own hopes and worries, aside from the usual, "How's school?" She assumed that if they had a real problem, they'd tell her. Meanwhile, her grandchildren felt that their grandmother didn't truly listen or empathize. She just gave them lectures and moved on. The result was a slow distancing. They stopped confiding in her because they didn't feel heard or understood. Attentive listening is more than just nodding while someone else speaks. It's about noticing shifts in their tone of voice, the choice of words, and even their facial expressions. If you perceive that someone is sad, anxious, or excited, pause and acknowledge it. Ask open-ended questions like, "How does that make you feel?" Or "What do you think you'll do next?" This encourages deeper sharing and shows that you genuinely care about their experience. Emotional connection thrives on empathy and understanding. Even in casual conversations, you can practice better emotional responsiveness. Instead of rushing to say, "You should do this. Try. That sounds tough. Is there anything I can do to help?" Or, "Wow, I'm happy for you. How did that opportunity come about?" Such questions validate the other person's emotional state. When individuals feel acknowledged and supported, they'll be more likely to seek out your company and value your presence. Over time, demonstrating emotional awareness can be as impactful as any physical change you make because it fosters genuine relationships that endure across generations. It's never too late to cultivate emotional intelligence. You might consider reading about active listening techniques or engaging in discussions where you deliberately slow down and process what others say before responding. This shift in focus, from delivering your story or advice to truly connecting with someone else's perspective, can breathe new life into your role within your family or community. Instead of being relegated to the sidelines, you become the wise, empathetic figure that people of all ages gravitate towards, eager to share their hopes and challenges with someone who truly gets it. Before we move to our closing thoughts, let's take a step back and consider how these individual points blend into a cohesive approach to aging. You might be thinking, this is a lot to keep track of. Do I really need to worry about all these details? My posture, volume, wardrobe, negativity, grooming, openness to new things, hygiene, and emotional intelligence? The short answer is, you don't have to transform everything overnight, but each small shift you make can have a ripple effect on how you interact with the world and how the world interacts with you. There is a natural temptation to think, at my age, why bother? The true question is, why not? Life is a continuous journey of self-discovery. Each stage of life provides its own unique set of joys and challenges. By staying open to learning and adapting, you affirm that your story is far from over. You're not only preserving your dignity, you're also keeping your relationships vibrant. Younger people will sense your willingness to engage with them on common ground, and peers will respect your determination to remain vital and relevant. Think of each point raised in this discussion as part of a larger tapestry. Good posture shows confidence. Better grooming shows self-respect. Well-regulated conversation style shows empathy. And an open mind shows adaptability. All these qualities are interconnected. As you cultivate one, it often reinforces another. For instance, if you become more mindful of your tendency to criticize, you may also become more aware of the tone and volume of your voice. By exploring a modern trend your grandchildren enjoy, you might also find yourself standing taller and prouder in the knowledge that you can still learn new things. To be sure, aging can bring certain limitations, health conditions, reduced mobility, or energy levels, but those limitations don't have to define your presence. By embracing a spirit of curiosity and self-awareness, you can turn each challenge into an opportunity for growth. Rather than seeing these adaptations as chores, frame them as part of a broader journey to remain fully engaged with life. In doing so, you'll be amazed at how much richer your experiences become and how naturally people gravitate towards someone who demonstrates warmth, openness, and a touch of wisdom gained from a life well lived. Now that you've explored a range of unspoken habits, from posture to grooming, conversation style to openness to new ideas, take a moment to reflect on which ones resonate most with you. You might have recognized a few things that you've unconsciously slipped into over the years. Maybe you see areas where a small change could spark a big improvement in your social life and overall sense of well-being. The important takeaway is this: every single one of these habits is within your power to address. Aging doesn't signal the end of personal growth. On the contrary, it can be a time to refine and enhance who you are, ensuring that your wisdom, kindness, and joyfulness shine through. When you stand tall, people see confidence. When you maintain simple grooming habits, people see self-respect. When you speak in a way that invites rather than overpowers, people feel valued. And when you demonstrate openness to new experiences, people sense that you're not just living in the past, but embracing the present, and perhaps even looking forward to the future. If you're wondering where to start, pick just one habit that you feel comfortable addressing first. It could be straightening your posture by practicing gentle stretches each morning, or trying out a hearing test if you suspect you've been raising your voice. Maybe you'll decide to switch up your wardrobe or try a new personal care product. Or perhaps you'll focus on changing the tone of your conversations, balancing criticism with curiosity. Whichever you choose, give yourself time and grace. Habits that took years to form won't vanish in a day, but steady, mindful effort can work wonders. Take a moment, two, to connect with people around you about your journey. If you have a close friend or a family member you trust, mention that you're making some changes and would appreciate their honest feedback. You might be pleasantly surprised by how supportive they'll be and by the positive responses you'll get from others who see your renewed sense of vitality. Remember that your presence is a gift to the world. By enhancing it through self-awareness and small acts of improvement, you ensure that the best parts of who you are continue to shine no matter your age. You'll find that people don't just look at you differently. They listen to you differently, approach you differently, and form richer, deeper connections with you. That in itself is worth every bit of effort. Thank you for joining me on this in-depth exploration of overlooked habits that can shape our presence as we grow older. By recognizing these subtle behaviors and making making even minor adjustments, you can preserve the qualities that make you uniquely you, while also remaining open to what the future holds. If you found any part of this script enlightening or helpful, take a moment to share your reflections with someone you care about. You never know whose life you might touch or whose perspective you might change. And always remember, aging is less about the passing of years and more about the continual unfolding of who you are. May you continue to unfold and shine in all the best ways for many years to come.